Your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hi, I'm Mac McGregor, the host of the You Can Make a Difference show, which airs live every Friday at 12 noon PT time. On the You Can Make a Difference show, we shine a spotlight on people who are doing amazing things to make a positive difference in our communities and in our world. We talk about what inspired them to do the work and what inspires them to keep going, how they got their start, and how you can, if it inspires you, plug into their world. We can all do something that makes a difference. So tune in every Friday at noon to the You Can Make a Difference show with Mac McGregor.
Yo, what's good? It's D Money, and you should definitely check out Fresh Juice every Wednesday, 9 to 11 Pacific, right on Rainier Avenue Radio.
With pint-sized Patron, Pete Treasy the Don. Y'all be sure to clean your mirrors as we play brand new hip-hop and R&B from locals and worldwide.
It's ID Yourself, a.k.a. Malcolm Flex. Make sure you check out Fresh Juice every Wednesday, Pacific Standard Time from 9 to 11 p.m.
And to get those exclusive interviews that we be doing.
Sipping a brand new fresh juice every single week.
Yeah. Every Wednesday, 9 to 11, Rainier Avenue Radio. Yeah.
Washington intiina badan waxaynu wadaagnaa in wadooyinka noqdaan kuwa nabadgelya marka waa inaanu telefoonada meel iska dhignaa laakiin taas sameynteedu ma fududa haddaba fadlan si faafi fariintan muhiimka ah tusaalena u noqo dadka kale hor intaadan jidka ku dhicin geli telefoonkaaga sanduuqa galofyada adoo u sheegay dadka ay qasad weydii saaxiibada iyo qoyskaaga inay saas oo kala sameeyaan sababtoo ah markuu qof walba kaalintiisa ka soo baxo wadada waxay noqonaysaa mid ammaan ah si wada jir ayaynu taa ku gaari karnaa fariintan waxay ka timid guddida badbaadada wadooyinka Washington.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Good afternoon and welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your community radio station broadcasting 24/7 in the interest of South Seattle worldwide. Local impact, global presence. It's me, Tony B, and this is your Friday Impacts of the Coronavirus on South Seattle and Surrounding Community show. Yes, it's still here. And we have a phenomenal show for you today, by the way, as well. Coming on a little bit later on the show will be Mr. Gregory Davis. Gregory is with the Rainier Beach Action Coalition. He's actually the managing strategist, so we'll be talking to Gregory. They just got some money. So we're going to talk about that, an award that they got for the Inclusive Recovery Fund. And then also joining us a little later in the show will be Aaron Okuna, Executive Director of Southeast Seattle Education Coalition. And they got some money. So we'll be talking to both Greg and then also Aaron about the Rainier Beach Action Coalition and then also the Southeast Seattle Education Coalition. But first, I say that, but first, excited to have some guests back that have joined us periodically, and we get to learn more about the Foster Grandparent Program, Americorps Foster Grandparent Program. It's really, really cool program, and I always like to have them on and talk about the Foster Grandparent Program and what's going on there. I will remind everyone that tomorrow from 11 to 2 will be once again in partnership with God Is doing our free food giveaway. So we don't ask any questions, just come get you some food. And the food is fresh produce, meat, dairy, usually even have some sweets, dried foods, canned foods. Just come on down and get some food. We won't ask you any questions. It doesn't matter what your circumstances are. Come get you some food right here at Rainier Avenue Radio, 4916 Rainier Avenue South of Columbia City Theater, right in front. You won't be able to miss it. Okay. Without further ado, I'm going to bring on both of my guests, Adelaide Arbogast and also Gay Harris. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Allied, good to see you again.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
And Gay, congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So, you know what? Let's start this off by giving folks a refresher. I talked about the Foster Grandparent Program, and some people might be, well, Foster Grandparent Program? Well, what is that? There are grandparents out there who are looking to be fostered? Is that-
No. So you want me to give you a refresher? So Americorps has found that there is a huge resource in our seniors, and to be able to tap that resource, we have a few different programs, but this program is called the Foster Grandparent Program, and essentially it helps seniors to find somewhere to be a mentor or a tutor, and it really offers a wonderful opportunity for community partners to have the ability to introduce seniors to their students, to their kids. It offers the opportunity for these seniors to continue to make an impact even though they have retired, and more so, I think, than they may have done in their careers, because I think that helping the next generation in whatever they need is a bigger impact.
And how have you been, Adelaide? It's been a minute since we've talked.
I am super, super glad that we are coming through, not done, but coming through this pandemic. I have been frustrated with the fact that a lot of our volunteers were not able to assist so much during the pandemic because a lot of schools and daycares had closed completely or did not offer any type of virtual opportunity, because a 2-year-old doesn't want to sit in front of a computer. And but for the volunteers that were able to, and the schools and daycares that were able to jump in on this, it was amazing. And I was just blown away by the amount of volunteers who said, okay, I'll learn. And before I could even approach Gay or the location that she serves at, they were already on top of it. They were giving her a laptop. They were offering her training. And she was like, yep, I'm in, let's go. And so when I finally was able to kind of get around to going, okay, now what can we do for Gay? She was like, oh, I'm on it. So It's been a blessing in many ways and a little frustrating in other ways during this pandemic.
Gay, you were featured by the Serve Washington organization. You're a teacher, or you're still a teacher. And
yes.
Always.
I want to share a couple of things. One of your former students says, Mrs. Gay shared her light with me each time I came to school, and mine was dimmed. She shared her contagious laughter every day and always gave each student and staff a bright smile. That's one of your former students. And I'll read something else from one of your former students. She's kind-hearted. Her spirit uplifts everybody. Everywhere she goes, her laughter fills up any room, and I find comfort knowing we have the honor to have her here with us. This is our guest, Gay Harris. Hello, Gay.
Hello, how are you?
Well, under the circumstances, I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I am doing relatively good. I'm glad that the pandemic is about over, or we're getting back into some kind of normalcy. But you are coming to me at school. So if you're hearing the noise in the background, that's the children. That's the students. I work with teenagers. So they keep us busy.
Well, Gay, let's find out some background information on you.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you grew up, and what got you interested in teaching.
Well, I wasn't interested in teaching at first.
Mhm.
But I grew up in a small town called Rocky Mount, North Carolina. That's between
Rocky
Raleigh
Mountain?
and it's no mountains. That's Rocky Mount, and it's
Rocky Mount.
between. That's right. It's between Raleigh and Durham, North Carolina.
Okay.
And I went to St. Augustine's College and graduated there. I'm not going to tell you what year, because then you want to know how old I am. But after finishing college, I wanted to go into social work because at the time I was in the civil rights movement. And I thought that would, I should save the world or save the community, so to speak. But I couldn't get into my field, and I was offered a job in teaching.
Mhm.
And I didn't know anything about teaching, but they threw me in a classroom and I worked it out.
Okay.
Fifth and sixth grade was first. And then my parents, of course, passed away in later years. And I came out here because my cousin suggested that I would find a job out here. So I'm here in the Pacific Northwest, and I have worked with just about every age group you can name.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So I taught kindergarten for about 17 years.
Wow.
And after retiring, I had decided that seemed like education is my thing. So I called a friend of mine who was at that time the leader of, she was the head leader of the school that she worked in. I said, do you need any help? And she said, yes. So after talking with her principal, I was on board. And that was in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been with the school district since.
Wow. Where were you teaching kindergarten at, Gay?
In Kirkland.
Okay. Yeah. That is I think an incredibly important time to get the education started off in the right way as kids enter our school system. I'm a big proponent of early education, and that is a time when the brain is just really active and open to learning things, and kind of sets the tone, for future years as well. Thank you for your service.
Well, thank you. You're welcome. I enjoy it. But the kids I work with here, they're different from kindergartens,
Okay.
And these are kids that have different concerns, different problems, and they need to be dealt with. They need to be loved. Love is the main word. They need it.
Mm.
And we try to give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Not only through their learning, but a lot of the times we have a couple of kids that live in not group homes, but they live on the streets. And they're coming from different parts of Seattle. And some of them are hungry, because that's what I hear in the beginning. I'm hungry. So what I try to do, I have a snack and lunch table outside this door, and it's well kept because I make sure food is there, food that they like, and I get donations from the building. I live in a senior building, and I kind of make it known to all the seniors that I live there with that I need some donations.
Mm-hmm.
And so usually once a week, I have bags at my apartment door where they have gone to Costco and filled it up full of stuff. So I bring it here.
And Gay, you make a great point. If someone is hungry, they're not going to learn.
No.
It's going to be extremely difficult. And by the same token, as there are other stressors in the lives of folks that if you don't pay attention to them, you might think a child is acting out. You might think a child is not interested in learning. Talk about that, Gay, and what you bring to the table as a teacher for the youth that you're talking about?
Well, when people ask me, what's your age group? And I tell them, you can see a frown on their face. I said, most people look at young children, the ones in kindergarten, and they, all for help for them because they feel like they need it. But I must tell you, the older ones need it too. And they need it more because they're going into society where they are becoming young adults. And they need a little guide, someone to kind of guide them down that path.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I bring. I'm a senior citizen. I'm always learning from them. And I think they're learning from me. So that's about what I can tell you about that. It just happens. It comes. And if they like you, they like you.
I think there's a big element also in them knowing that she is a volunteer,
Yeah.
that she shows up there willingly every day. She is not employed there.
Mhm.
And having that element of those kids knowing that she's choosing to be there and choosing to care for them and that they are valuable, that she is willing to do this because they mean something to her, is kind of an unspoken love.
Yes.
It's an unspoken thing where kids feel like, okay, well, she's going to be there and she doesn't have to be there, and I can go see her. So it's kind of a nice
Yeah.
element of having that grandparent figure who looks at you a
Mhm.
little bit differently than maybe an educator might.
That's true.
And this is the question for both of you. What have you noticed about our youth, about education? Because there are, in regards to, we're just again coming out of this pandemic. Hopefully, we are seeing signs that there are things that are on the uptick, but at least now we have vaccinations and we have other treatments. But we don't know yet the impact that this pandemic had because of the virtual learning, and we probably won't really see the impact for both of you. Again, with the Foster Grandparents Program, and then Gay, for you being boots on the ground in there, and either one of you can go first on this. Is there anything that you can share with us? Anything that you can tell us from your experiences? What you've seen and where we're at right now
I
in
see
regards to the
depression.
youth?
I see depression. You can tell it by looking at their face when they arrive. I had a young man not too long ago. Boy, he's about 6'4", 6'5". He walked in. I knew I know he, what he wanted. He wanted something to eat. Not that he doesn't get it at home, but he wanted something to eat. And then all of a sudden, he just started tearing up, and he was depressed. He was depressed. So this pandemic has caused a lot of people to sort of refrain from society, just not being able to get involved with people, get involved with their peers. It has done a lot of damage mentally to a lot of the young people and
I
older people too.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I'm hearing from a lot of our stations and our volunteers that the kids are behind, kind of emotionally and socially, and the interaction is so valuable. It's so important for them to get that social time as well as that educational time, and that one-on-one is really important. Which, if you're in a Zoom class, you're watching a teacher, you're seeing maybe your other classmates, but you're not getting that development of just socializing and what they need as they're growing. And as a parent, I also have noticed that with my own student,
Mhm.
once with my youngest. And when she finally got back to going to in-person school, it was like a light went on. And so I think one of the most important things is during the pandemic, Gay was able to offer some of that normalcy, even though it was on a virtual platform. That normalcy of seeing the same, educators and seeing Gay on a weekly basis to touch in for school purposes, but also for social purposes.
Yes.
And now that most of the schools have gone back to in person, I see a delay in a lot of our students on their, just that social emotional, they're kind of behind in
They
their
are
age level.
behind.
So
Yeah, we're just, it's unfortunately going to be a while before we know the full impact that this had
absolutely.
on our youngest learners.
Mhm.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio. It's me, Tony B. This is our special impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities broadcast. My guests are from the Foster Grandparent Program, Adelaide Arbogast. Am I saying your last
You
name?
are Adelaide Arbogast.
And also Gay Harris, who are joining us. And I was just talking about from their perspective, what they've seen in this educational framework that we've tried to navigate with the pandemic in place. And thank you both for sharing your boots on the ground information. And Gay, here's another thing. One of the things that also, because there's no silver bullet, there's no singular way this is impacting. It's impacting everybody much different. For a lot of Black youth and youth of color, they didn't actually want to go back to school because they found that, again, there were different stressors at school that impacted them that they didn't have to deal with in regards to systemic oppression and racism at school. And so no, we're losing something, but then on some end, there's some other things. So again, Gay, as you're welcoming students back and we're talking about that mental health, there's just got to be a whole lot more than just, but just to say it like this, reading, writing, and arithmetic.
It is. It is. I bring music too during lunchtime, and different kinds. And sometimes they haven't said anything whether they dislike the music or not. But when they are moving, I know that they're liking it. So it kind of gives, music is wonderful to have around. So yeah, during the lunchtime, music is played.
And Gate, tell me how you got involved. I think you kind of alluded to this with the Foster Grandparent Program.
Well, back here in 2011, like I was telling you, I was retiring and I called my friend and see if I could volunteer. I did volunteer with the Seattle School District under the Catholic Community Service for 3 years. And I didn't get any pay for it, but it was what I wanted to do. And then I heard about the Foster Grandparent Program through them, and they were offering stipends and wanted people to work in the school district and around different jobs. So that's how I got involved.
Adelaide, what is the reach of the Foster Grandparent Program? Nationally, is it a national organization and within our communities?
It is a national organization. It's through Americorps and their branch of Americorps Seniors. So it is a grant that is offered throughout, I'm not sure, but it might be all 50 states, and various nonprofits and different organizations and agencies can bid for these grants. And if they have the proper infrastructure, then they're granted the grant. And our program is currently run by Homage. It's a senior services program out of Linwood. Actually, all but the Americorps programs of Homage serve Snohomish County, and Americorps does get to go into King and Snohomish County for both the programs that we have, which is our Foster Grandparent Program and our Senior Companion Program. And that's active seniors visiting kind of homebound seniors and just having a friendship. And so both of these programs are run by Homage. Both these grants are facilitated by Homage for King and Snohomish County within Washington State. Currently, there are no other foster grandparent programs within Washington State. No one else has picked up this grant. But there are other senior companion programs throughout Washington State. I know that there's some in California. That's where I come from. So I know that they do have foster grandparent and senior companion programs within California. There's a whole organization of all the program directors that get together and talk and discuss things. And so we have different networks for that.
Hey, Daniel, I want to take a look at this. Oh, it's just it right here. I think
there you go.
Might be what I'm looking for. There we. Oh, okay. Technical problem. I solved it.
Okay, good.
Wow. It seems like we just started talking, and we're almost out of time. And I want to give both of you an opportunity for final words here. And Adelaide, I'll start with you. And can you also mention for folks who are going, well, wait a minute, maybe we should have a foster grandparent program at our school, if that's possible, how that works. And for folks who are grandparents who are looking to be part of this program or seniors, how can they get involved?
All right. So you do not have to be a grandparent. You just have to be a senior and retired. We are seeking low income, and we do give a small stipend that helps to make sure that you can continue to volunteer, that it's tax free, and it pays for mileage. It pays for some meals if you serve a certain amount of hours per day. I like to just say it keeps the lights on for your cat while you're gone doing your service, since it's a small amount. But anyone 55 and older who is low income can join us. You can reach us by seeking us out at homage.org. You can reach us by emailing fgp@homage.org. You can reach us by typing in arbogast@homage.org. There's lots of different ways. We are looking within communities. We want representation within communities. And we know that we have a lot in King County, but we also need more in Snohomish County as well, of our volunteers, because doors are opening, and we really want to be able to have these intergenerational opportunities for people and for children to interact with grandparents. So.
Thank you. And Gay, opportunity for final words here. Anything you want to say to our listeners, students?
Just get involved.
Isn't she great?
Get involved.
Well, thank the both of you. Keep up the great work, Adelaide. And anytime you want to come back, just let me know. And I really adore this program, and especially the folks who are giving of their time. And Gay, just been great to talk to you. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Coming up a little later in the program, this is for you too, Adelaide and Gay, if you want to stay tuned. Gregory Davis will be joining us from the Rainier Beach Action Coalition. They were awarded money for the Inclusive Recovery Fund from the Seattle Foundation. We're going to find out more about the Rainier Beach Action Coalition, find out more about Gregory Davis, and find out more about this fund. But coming up next, the Executive Director of Southeast Seattle Education Coalition, Aaron Acuna. They were also awarded money for the Inclusive Recovery Fund. We're going to find out more about Southeast Seattle Education Coalition, and we'll also get in Aaron's Kool-Aid a little bit too, and find out more about Aaron. We'll be back with more from the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities right here on Rainier Avenue Radio .world in about 2-3 minutes. We'll be back.
Okay,
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
All right, that was it.
On social media, Facebook and Instagram, Rainier Avenue Radio .world, and on Twitter at Rainier Av Radio.
我哋大家都同意喺華盛頓，我哋嘅道路係最安全嘅。喺現今嘅世界，我哋明白將手機放喺遙不可及嘅地方係一件唔容易嘅事，但係我哋要樹立榜樣，傳播呢個安全信息。喺你駕駛之前，你應該將手機設定為請勿打擾，然後將手機放入手套箱入邊，並且要求你嘅朋友、家人都咁做。當我哋盡自己一份力量嘅時候，道路安全對每個人嚟講會更安全。等我哋一齊安全駕駛到目的地。以上信息嚟自華盛頓交通安全委員會。
Welcome to the Fitness Corner. I'm your host, Mark Bryant, and you're going to get a whole total body workout on my show, starting off with a warm-up, aerobics, strength training, cool down, and stretching every Friday from 11:30 to 12 right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Women are not an homogenous group. We face discrimination differently depending on factors such as ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, and more.
Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to amplify women's voices.
They are the experts of their own lives, initiating conversations within their community about challenges they face, the solutions they're working on, and the opportunities they see.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 for Women's Voices on Air. We know our challenges. We are the experts of our lives.
We are master multitaskers, prioritizing our family, friends, and our faith above our own needs.
Our needs and voices are too often overlooked.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. for Women's Voices on Air.
We tell our stories in our own way.
This is your Rainier Avenue Radio.World community update on Seattle City Lights Utility Discount Program application. If you are impacted by COVID-19, otherwise known as the coronavirus, access the utility discount application online at seattle.gov/UDP for utility discount program, or call 206-684-3000. That's seattle.gov/UDP or 206-684-3000.
Hello, my name is Pastor Derek Lane, and I live and pastor here in the Othello community. I'm vaccinated because I know how illness can hurt the community. As a grandfather, I am boosted to help protect my 3.5-year-old granddaughter who can't be. I don't want to see members of my community die needlessly. And as a pastor, I've had funerals for those who caught COVID, but none from taking the vaccine. If you have questions, need resources, or want to make an appointment, visit kingcounty.gov/vaccine.
Live from Upper Left USA, this is Caleb Brown with Unleashed Entertainment. You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.World.
Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio.World. That's me, Tony B, your host of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities, a show that we do every Friday from 1 to 3. And we've been doing this since March 13th of 2020. And I bet you Aaron probably say the same thing. Had no idea we would still be doing this in May of 2022. I don't know. I'll ask Erin. Maybe she predicted it, but here we are. And as we know, the impacts of the coronavirus are broad and wide and systemic. It's just impacted everything. And still today we're making the adjustments. My guest just recently joining me again from the Foster Grandparent Program, talking about how the youth have been impacted in the work that they do as educators. As an educator, Gay was sharing with us, that depression is one of those things. Anyway, let me welcome to the program right now, Erin Okuna. Erin, how are you?
Hi.
Oh, there you are.
I had to unmute the perpetual Zoom online pause.
Another thing that is a result of the coronavirus, but we've gotten used to that somewhat, but it still happens. Well, how are you doing? And am I saying your last name correct? Is it Okuno?
It's Okuno.
Okuno. How are you doing?
I'm good. I am just around the corner from you, so enjoying the Columbia City neighborhood today.
The rain.
Yep.
Well, Aaron, um, you know, I sometimes I get bios and I read the bio, but it's much more enjoyable, I think, to just hear from our guests and let them talk about who they are and what led them to be in the positions that they're in today. So, Aaron, give us a little bit of background information on yourself, where you're from, where you grew up, and why you chose, if you chose to, maybe it chose you to get into the work that you do.
That is a really interesting and not interesting question because I don't necessarily think of myself as super interesting, but I grew up originally in Hawaii, made my way to Seattle for college, and then just started working in the different nonprofits here, and have really enjoyed the space. I was listening to the tail end of your previous guest and really enjoyed listening to that conversation around supporting different families, especially families who are just, like enjoying trying to do the best that they can, as like many of us.
And you graduated from Seattle U.
Yes.
As well. So you must like Seattle. You must be okay.
It's a wonderful city.
I'm saying that because it's raining today and it's May, but we know this happens in Seattle. But you must enjoy Seattle. You must enjoy our community here. I'm guessing. I'm asking is really what I'm doing.
I do. I really enjoy the Southeast community, especially. It's a wonderful, wonderful community that has really embraced diversity in its best sense. And, just at lunch today, I walked across the street to a little African immigrant owned business and was chatting with the proprietor there, then walked up the street and saw a lot of different restaurants, and it's just fun. And it's really, I also see this diversity in our schools, and I enjoy that diversity. I'm really proud of how the Southeast community is working to embrace it and keep it special.
And that is just the community that we live in. It's not like some extracurricular effort that we have to manipulate in order to be diverse. It's just what it is. And Aaron, we proudly represent this community on Rainier Avenue Radio. That's who we are. That's what we do, and are so happy to be able to showcase some of the amazing individuals and organizations within our community. A lot of times, and it is what it is, Aaron. When you hear about Southeast Seattle, you hear about some sort of crime. I'm talking about mainstream media. You hear about some sort of crime or something like that. But there are amazing stories that emanate from our community every day. Every day.
Exactly. And like you, I like to highlight those.
Southeast Seattle Education Coalition. Let's talk about the Southeast Seattle Education Coalition what is the Southeast Seattle Education Coalition? Explain it to me like I'm from Mars and I've never heard of you before.
Well, we are a community coalition. So we started probably about 8 to 10 years ago, somewhere around there, a little fuzzy on that. And we came together at the time of several different leaders of color came together and saw a lot of different things happening in the education realm. So there was several big initiatives taking place. There was City of Seattle levy money, families and education levy money coming through. And the community decided that it was time to come together and really make sure that Southeast Seattle was not going to be left behind in these funding efforts or in policy conversations. And they wanted to be at the table, and they knew that they had to self-organize to get there. So that was the very start, and that was the genesis of the coalition. Mm-hmm. And who we are today is we very much hold to many of those same roots. We are we're open to everyone, but we really also try to focus on communities of color first.
When you say Southeast Seattle Education Coalition, there's a lot of conversation in our country right now going on about education. Do you advocate? Do you take a position? Um, there's this thing that it's been called a number of different things. People have called it the achievement gap. People call it the opportunity gap. There's just a lot of interest in education. And then, as I mentioned before, now we've had 2 years of a group of folks who are going to school who are doing that virtually. And we don't know necessarily right now the impact of all of that. I say all of that to say, as the Southeast Seattle Education Coalition, share with our listeners how you approach some of these issues, if you do, that impact our communities, and they generally impact our communities pretty uniquely.
We do a lot of advocacy, and the advocacy looks in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's a big advocacy where we're really speaking up and doing trying to get people to show up at school board meetings and things along those lines. But we also do a lot of smaller advocacy, where if we identify something that could be problematic for students of color, for the schools in our area, we're working with policymakers, we're working with school district staff or principals or whomever it is to say hey, just kind of saying hey, have you really considered this problem from this perspective? Because this is how we're hearing it's going to impact families of color differently than what you may think or what you're hearing. So we try to do a lot of advocacy in those ways. One of the primary things that we do is I try to make sure a coalition is a space where people build relationships. One of the things that I want to see happen is when we have a community where there's a lot of strong relationships between people, between diverse people, and I mean that in the broadest sense. So when different people are talking to different people, the conversation changes. And we also know that makes for better decision making. We also know that resources get shared differently. We also know that outcomes are just better for students and families. So one of the things I tell people is, if, let's say, CSEC were to go away, leave, we accomplish what we say we were meant to do. My hope is that network of people will hold for a really long time, that the people are so interconnected that the good work that was started will continue.
Mm-hmm. So when you say the goal is accomplished, what does that goal look like? Share with us that goal where you could say, we've done what we set out to do.
Yeah, that would be a wonderful day.
Share
I
that
think
with
that when race is no longer a predictor of education for students in Seattle, where a Black child, an Indigenous child, an Asian child, Latino, any student of color can walk into a school building, feel like they belong, and receive an equal education, and one that embraces them and embraces their family. I think that's when we will be done. Right now, we know that's not the case.
Okay.
There's signs of progress, and there's good things that happen that are working towards that, but that is, for too many families and too many students, that's not the norm.
Yeah. And it's just one of those things that there are always unanticipated challenges that impact your ability to reach that goal. But I guess you got to keep striving for it and try and get there. My guest is Erin Okuna, Executive Director of Southeast Seattle Education Coalition. You got an award recently, and let's talk about that, because everybody needs funding. When you're trying to do the types of things that you do, funding is usually one of the biggest things that come up. Well, how are we going to get this funded? How have you been funded in the past? I'll start with that. In order to accomplish the goal that you're trying to go, where does this funding come from? I know that it doesn't just grow on trees, and just talk about that a bit.
Yeah, we are very fortunate to to have a lot of community support, and most of our funding comes from various grants. We are very fortunate to be a recipient of the Seattle Foundation's latest round of grant making, the Fund for Inclusive Recovery, which is really helping POC-led, people of color-led nonprofits that are also embedded in communities of color think about what happens post-COVID, or the long tail of COVID, and how can we make sure our communities are coming out of it thriving? How can we make sure we're also, I'm really stuck on this question of how can we hold on to the good things that happened with COVID? While there was a lot of hurt, a lot of harm, a lot of inequities, there was also innovations that came out of it. And I think we saw a lot of places where communities innovated to take care of each other, communities of color especially. So how can we also hold on to some of those lessons and build from that?
The name of the grant, Inclusive Recovery Fund. What does that mean for you? How will you use those funds in terms of inclusive recovery?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think for CSEC, one of the things that we always have to be questioning and asking ourselves are, as a POC-led organization or POC-embedded organization, who needs to feel included more? There's things that we definitely as an organization have to grow on. One is working to build deeper relationships with parents. We currently work with a lot of nonprofits that are working with parents. So that's one of the growth edges I really want to explore with our coalition. I also want to explore really what does it mean to be in just relations with our Black community and Indigenous people, and also people, POCs with disabilities. I think those are areas where we have to continue to grow. And I mention those communities because I'm also very mindful that I'm Asian and I'm very proud of my Asian identity, and I have a lot to learn from others.
And if you don't know, here on this show, we just have open, honest, frank conversation. This particular month has been celebrated as Asian American Pacific Islander Month. I've also seen that acronym for Asian Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Month. And there has been, among some folks, a move to disaggregate. And that's why I say inclusive. That disaggregation, for some people, suppose their voices won't be heard if they weren't at the table. And you said you're from Hawaii originally. And I just wanted to take a deeper dive in our community. As you know, we've over 70 different languages, 100 different dialects. For some people, that's unmanageable when they think about inclusivity. So again, I just wanted to take a deeper dive into that, because that's a very nuanced thing. And so again, Inclusive Recovery Fund, and that concept of inclusion. How do you build those relationships? How do you partner with institutions to create trusted community advocates with you?
Yeah. I think we build relationships very much like what you're doing right now. We get to know people, and you have to get to know people on a very human level, and spending time together, asking them what their stories are, asking very much like what you did, like, how did you get here? What excites you? What are you working towards? How can we support you in that journey? And through those very basic but really interesting conversations, interesting things come up. And I hope that at CSEC that people are able to have some of those conversations, even if it's just once a month, where they're meeting somebody new and they're listening to a presentation about a very timely topic, but they're creating new thoughts, creating new ways of seeing information.
When you look at Southeast Seattle, maybe from Genesee Street to Rainier Beach, as the Southeast Seattle Education Coalition, do you find, I guess what I want to do is set the scenario here. What does education look like? What does education feel like in Southeast Seattle? Some folks will say, well, there's no community college here. There's no institution of higher, there's no trade school. There's no, what's here? We know we have high schools here. We know we have the Rainier Valley Leadership Academy. We know we've got Allen T. Sugiyama. We've got the beach. We've got Cleveland. What does education feel like? What does it look like in Southeast Seattle if you were going to describe that to someone? And again, as you know, we have unique challenges and in some instances, barriers.
Yeah, I would say education is always all around us. One of the stories I reflect on during COVID was, it was like, so think back to like March, April, when schools had first shut down. And I think I, like many other overeager parents, were like, oh my gosh, what's going on? You know, it's like, what's going to happen to my own two kids? I know they're physically safe, but you know, normally they would be in school learning. And I was on the phone with a friend, another executive director who's Somali, and she just goes, Erin, sister, look, your kids are learning so much right now. Education doesn't just happen in the classroom. She's like, look at, and she really reframed my thinking about this. You know, education doesn't have to just be in classrooms. She's like, and she was telling me about how she was very grateful for the time that she had with her kids because they were getting to spend it in a language-rich environment where her kids were learning Somali on a different level, her home language. And I was like, you are so right. You know, they're getting to, for her kids, they were getting to spend time with their elders, large concentrations of time. They were baking and cooking food from Somalia, from their own home regions. And that is what education can and look like in our communities. And it does. And we have to recognize that as wealth. Now, on the flip side, too, we can't forget that schools are so important. And within our schools, I'm really proud to see so much diversity and to see how many of our schools are really trying to embrace the families coming with the wealth of knowledge that I just acknowledged. Admittedly, there's places where that is less strong, and there's some places where it's really personal identity is embraced. And that's something that CSEC is working towards, is like to really help everyone understand like what we bring is just as important as what schools have to offer.
What do you see as the biggest barriers or challenges for our community when it comes to making sure that our youth receive a high quality education?
Yeah, that's such an important question to ask. And I wish I had a really great answer to it, but I think in my attempt to answer, it's going to be very clumsy. I think one of the things we have to do is see our students for who they are, see our diverse students, our Black students, our Indigenous students, our POC students, immigrant students, as whole people who deserve to be educated, who deserve to belong in their schools. The belief and the belonging is critical to educational success. If you don't feel like you belong in a place, it becomes really hard to attain the knowledge that the school wants you to learn.
Mm-hmm. And how did this 2 years, for one, it seemed like it took forever. And then now that it's gone, it seemed like, what happened 2 years? How did that go by so quickly? How did the pandemic impact and affect the work that you do at the Southeast Seattle Education Coalition?
Yeah, one of the stories I'm really proud of is we managed to keep going through COVID. Like many other organizations, we saw COVID shut us down. We shut down pretty early, went remote fairly early, but we didn't stop because we were seeing how devastating COVID was in those really early spring cold days. And we also saw the need very early, I think it was March and April, when schools shut down, we pivoted really quickly to doing mutual aid around technology. So my intern at the time, Caleb, he's really wonderful. He set up a technology exchange program where he created 2 online forums, and a teacher could request technology. So like And we had another forum where people could donate extra laptops or tablets, and he would make connections between people so that they could exchange it. And, that's one of the things that, looking back, was a really small thing, but at the time it was really important for people to feel connected, but also to get technology to kids. One of the sad things is we're now 2-3 years into COVID, and we still don't have universal internet access, which we saw was so important. And I wish that CSEC could fix this problem, but this is a problem beyond local and small organizations' capacity, but it's still a huge need in our community.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, Tony B. This is our special Impacts of the Coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding community show. Joining me is Aaron Okuna, and we're talking about the Southeast Seattle Education Coalition. Just recently, were the beneficiaries of the recovery, inclusive recovery fund, and just a little bit, just talk about that in the Seattle Foundation, and it's a good thing, and thank them for doing that. I'm here to talk to y'all, but it's also a good thing that just your thoughts about that, or philanthropic organizations that make sure that they reach out to and impact organizations like yours. I'm giving Seattle Foundation some love here. That's what I'm trying to do. And I've been in their grill before too. So about these types of things.
I want to show the Seattle Foundation and their funders and donors some love too, because this fund really does give us this award for 3 years, really does give us a lot of support and a way to thoughtfully grow and thoughtfully continue what we're doing. The 3 years, especially having that continued support, gives us a lot of breathing room to dream, to innovate, to invest in ourselves, and which allows us to invest in our community a lot more.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's public knowledge. I'm not saying, how much money are you getting over the 3 years?
$200,000 a year for 3 years, so $600,000 total. And while that sounds like a lot, it's also it is a lot, and it's often not enough to make an organization whole for the amount of work that we have to do, but we are super grateful for it.
Mm-hmm. Aaron, it seems like we just got started. I really wanted to share information about Southeast Seattle Education Coalition. And so we'll probably have to do this again sometime. But I want to give you the opportunity for final words here without me just bombarding you with questions, to say whatever you'd like to say to our Rainier Avenue Radio listening audience in South Seattle and surrounding communities, and actually people listening all over the world.
Yeah, well, one, thank you for highlighting education and the needs there. I think my parting words is to support your local schools. They're still in the middle of COVID. Teachers are working super hard. It is Teacher Appreciation month. So if you're connected, I hope everybody's connected to a teacher in some way. Show them some love, bring them some cookies, drop off some flowers at the school office. You probably can't get in beyond the front door office because of COVID protocols, but they really do need a pick-me-up and deserve a pick-me-up right now. And then the second thing is also, if you're eligible to vote and you are a registered voter, please vote for school board in your school board and levy elections. We're not in a current election cycle right now, but there's always education is always on ballots in different intervals. And if you are not registered, please register to vote and vote for in your school board elections.
All right. And that one of those comments came up in the comment section about there's just so much to talk about when we're talking about schools. Thank you, Aaron, for the work that you do in Southeast Seattle Education Coalition. I'm glad you got some funding. I know it may not be much, but it is $200,000 a year for 3 years. And that should be able to, in some way, assist and support what you're doing here in South Seattle, and maybe might help you reach that goal. Let's see if we can.
It definitely will. We're so excited for it.
We're going to talk to, coming up here very shortly, Gregory Davis from the Rainier Beach Action Coalition, who also received a similar grant, and we're going to find out more about RBAC, who they are, what they do, Gregory Davis, who he is, how he gets down as the managing strategist. And then, of course, we'll talk about that award as well. We'll be back in 2-3 minutes, something like that. Yeah.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not meeting Mrs. Jones in that cafe for a chat and nothing else, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Are you a small business owner in Seattle who was impacted by COVID-19? The Seattle Office of Economic Development is investing $8 million to connect small businesses to operating capital. The Small Business Capital Access Program will lower the cost of Washington State Small Business Flex Fund loans by paying down 25% of the loan principal. Eligible small businesses can borrow up to $150,000 with a 4% interest rate to cover expenses like payroll, rent, utilities, and supplies.
This is Monique Lee from the Afternoons with Monique show. I'm also the owner of Seattle Love Broker, a relationship consulting and matchmaking company. Tune in every Thursday afternoon at 1 p.m. to listen to intriguing, informative, and entertaining guests share stories of their past and vision for the future of our community.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world is your community radio station. We are a 24/7 internet radio station and multimedia network dedicated to amplifying the diverse voices of our Seattle communities and beyond. You'll hear a range of music, sports, regional traffic, local and national news, happenings around Greater Seattle, and talk shows including political, current events, diverse languages, and children's programming created by members of our communities. And we will continue to broadcast live from our communities. We also provide digital media training to community members to become their own content creators. Check out the CADMA page on our website. You can hear us online at RainierAvenueRadio.world or on TuneIn. And follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Hello, listener. What's important to you about what's going on in your community? Are you interested? Are you concerned? In any case, I invite you to tune into my show, Seattle Here and Now, on RainierAvenueRadio.world. Why? I will be covering a wide range of topics important to you and impacting the community. Each show will have a special guest or guests to share with you information on a variety of subjects that are happening here and now in Seattle. I promise I will work hard to make my show informative, interesting, and entertaining. Be sure to listen to Seattle Here and Now on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Ở Washington, hầu hết chúng ta đều đồng ý rằng con đường dẫn đến sự an toàn nhất là khi chúng ta đặt điện thoại ra khỏi tầm tay. Nhưng điều đó không dễ làm, vì vậy hãy lan truyền thông điệp và làm gương. Trước khi bạn lên đường, đặt điện thoại của bạn vào hộp đựng găng tay, gài đặt nó với không làm phiền. Yêu cầu bạn bè và gia đình của bạn cũng làm như vậy. Bởi vì khi tất cả chúng ta đều làm phần việc của mình, sẽ tạo ra con đường an toàn hơn cho tất cả mọi người. Chúng ta hãy cùng nhau đến đó. Một thông điệp từ Ủy ban An toàn Giao thông Washington.
Northwest Film Forum's Collective Power Fund is now open for grant applications. Grants are starting at $2,000 up to $10,000 for individual or artist collectives. The annual grant cycle focuses primarily on supporting art that incites public dialogue, pushes boundaries, explores genre fluidity, speaks its truth through an authentic perspective, and is often non-traditional, anti-institutional, socially responsible, or disruptive of any existing structures and conventions. Learn more and apply at collectivepowernw.org.
Welcome to the coronavirus pandemic. I'll take coronavirus for 100. Fever, chills, shortness of breath, loss of taste or smell. What is staying home and isolate? Correct. Coronavirus for 200. Inability to stay awake, persistent pain or pressure in chest, trouble breathing. What is seek immediate help? Correct.
Coronavirus for 500.
Crippling and potentially dead infectious disease eliminated in the United States with vaccination.
What is the polio vaccine?
Correct.
I'll take coronavirus for 700.
The Daily Double. Should I take the coronavirus vaccine?
Wait. Hold up. This is not a game. It's time for serious discussions. We have coronavirus vaccines, but not everyone is comfortable taking them. Here's the facts. Based on what has been proven about vaccines for other diseases, COVID-19 vaccine may help keep you from getting seriously ill, even if you do get the virus. Getting vaccinated also may protect people around, particularly those at greater risk for severe illness from COVID-19. We don't yet have all of the answers. Get informed, talk to your healthcare physician, and make the right decision for you. This is a message supported by the Washington State Department of Health. Rainier Avenue Radio,
your community radio station.
This is Cindy Bray, the host of Heartbeat Radio.
This is Paul Thierson, host of Star
This
Time.
is Paul Schneider today on the 73rd edition.
Hey,
of
y'all.
Sports
Welcome
Stuff
to
on
Travelers
Rainier
Guide to
Avenue
Venus and Mars and Princess Robin. Alicia Ferry Von Mother. Yes, no big
Dirty Harry.
Your home for information about the impact of the
And
coronavirus.
amongst many things that's difficult about this virus is that it
Well,
prevents
it's been
people from
devastating.
gathering. So
There are really heartbreaking stories of people who have.
There isn't anyone that isn't impacted.
shutting our schools down, including all athletic programs.
Your first-hand accounts.
We got hit up to check, and I found out that I was positive.
A lot of people who know me, I'm still the first person they know.
But it was almost like you were patient zero for South Seattle. Your stories of community coming together.
Partner very heavily with Tacoma Urban League, who is doing some amazing work in response.
We're doing things for small businesses. We're giving out loans for small businesses.
And so I think it's very important that we have leaders who feel the
I mean, I cannot tell you we're calling 20, 30, 40
this
members.
crisis in our community. We've been working to address it.
Rainier Avenue Radio, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
DJ Dirty John.
Karen Z with Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hey, this is Sergio LaCour.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
RainierAvenueRadio.world. We got you covered. Local impact, global presence.
We broadcast. Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.world and our weekly coverage of the impact of communities. This is a continuation of our series. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us again here. And then again, now we are aware of the fact that we are and more folks listening to that.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, Tony B. It's Friday, and so this is our Impacts of the Coronavirus on South Seattle and Surrounding Communities program that we've been doing every Friday since March 13th of 2020. Over 250 shows. If you went to our website, you'd be able to take a look at all of the various folks who we've had a chance to talk to in regards to how coronavirus has, again, it's just been engaged and involved. And I mean, it's actually like a chronological timeline. And you can see how things evolved. If you go back to our first show, on that show, we were just getting initial information from Public Health, Seattle, King County. We also were talking to teachers who were understanding and realizing that, hey, you know, in addition to the teaching, there's a number of kids in our school that are going to be hungry because they're not going to get breakfast because they're not going to school. And in addition to that, as you heard Aaron mention, there wasn't universal internet. And in addition to that, there weren't laptops in all the homes. And so this has just been something that, yeah, well, we're going to keep doing it. And we'll eventually, hopefully, have this turn into something where we can look back on these past 2 years and have a better, clearer picture of how our youth, in particular those who weren't able to attend school and had to do it virtually, were being impacted. So just a big, we're still doing it. We're still having the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding community show. I'd like to bring our guest on right now from the Rainier Beach Action Coalition, Mr. Gregory Davis. Mr. Davis.
Yes.
How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm well, besides the little technical difficulties, but I'm with you.
All right. Well, man, good to have you here, Greg. And first of all, man, let me start off by just, at Rainier Avenue Radio, how we get down. We unashamedly, like to promote, put a spotlight on, showcased members of our community, and in particular, over these last couple years of coronavirus. Some of the institutions that folks thought would be there weren't there, but then some folks came through and stood up on behalf of our community. Greg, you're one of those individuals and groups, so thank you for what you do for Southeast Seattle.
Hey, you are welcome. You are welcome, and thank you for the acknowledgement.
Well, let's find out. Sometimes I read bios, and that can get kind of boring reading a bio. I would much rather than me read your bio, tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, where you're from, any interesting tidbit that you want to share. Maybe you might want to explain the Memphis Golden State basketball series. I don't know. I'm just kidding. but just give us some information and background on yourself. Let's start with that before we even get into RBAC.
Yeah, good show. And so I thought I put a lot of work on that bio. I thought maybe you'd be able to represent, but hey. So yeah, Gregory Davis, and actually I grew up in Compton, California in the 60s and 70s. So I'm kind of dating myself. But that's where I kind of cut my teeth on kind of the aspirations I have in my life right now. Just seeing too many young people, talented lives either lost or the talent being displayed in other illicit industries, if you know what I mean. And so came up here to Seattle University and served in the Black Student Union there. Got connected with some really staunch brothers in the area during that time. Zach Bruce, Thaddeus Spratlin, who's now Kalfani Mwamba. And so we all met as freshmen, sophomores in college, and have friendships right now. That ultimately led me into this nonprofit realm and working with young people. I actually worked at Central Area Motivation Program, that's now known as Bird Bar Place, and ran a rite of passage experience program called ROPE. It was really the first municipal-based funded rite of passage program in the community. They generally kind of start out of churches or out of basements in people's homes, but CAMP was able to connect it to youth violence in a way to kind of reduce that youth violence. And we were able to spend 10 years putting that program together. And now we've got young adults who are running their own organizations that started and had humble beginnings there. So a lot of time in the nonprofit realm, worked for Casey County Programs for about 13 years, traveling across the country, supporting executives in child welfare industry, trying to help them improve their policy and practice. Ultimately, that got a little old. That's a young man's game, traveling all across the country. And because I had started this organization, Rainier Beach Community Empowerment Coalition, in 2003, with a back to school bash, giving away school supplies with town halls. I said, let me just kind of jump back into this and give back to this neighborhood. I got my eyes on Rainier Beach when I was executive director at Emerald City Outreach Ministries, which is now Urban Impact. And after becoming being a part of the neighborhood planning process in the central area, got involved in the planning commission, got into Rainier Beach, started looking at the neighborhood plan and saying, this is something that captures the hopes and dreams of these folks in this neighborhood. Let me start an organization to kind of steward this process, and been beautifully supported by my lovely wife, Sean. We will be married 38 years.
Congratulations.
Wonderful children. Thank you. Children, Jarrell Davis, performance name Rel Be Free, and my wonderful daughter Kyla, who's now leading the Rainier Scholars organization at this time. So yeah, little quick background, and now I'm the managing strategist at Rainier Beach Action Coalition.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that too. I was just talking to Erin Okuno, and one of the things that she said, when we reach our goal, and I asked her what the goal was, and and I'm certainly not trying to be positive about it, but with the things that she was saying, it just seems like that goal will never be reached If you're talking, about systemic racism, oppression, and need to. So, and I've said this before, the reason why we exist as a radio station is to highlight and showcase our community.
Yeah.
Everybody's not familiar with South Seattle. Everybody's not familiar with Rainier Beach. When I say to you, tell me about Rainier Beach and South Seattle. Tell me about Rainier Beach and South Seattle. What comes to mind?
Yeah. Well, one of the first things comes to mind is some of the best basketball in the state is played over yonder, right? You're talking about Memphis and Golden State. We got some guys and young ladies in the pros out there. The other thing I would say, it's very, I think we can also all say it's very culturally diverse, one of the more culturally diverse neighborhoods in the state, for sure. And what that does is that allows this arts, food, relational kind of culture to exist. You can walk down the street in Southeast Seattle, Rainier Beach, and you can see every culture, and that's really unique in any place in the city. You'll see the Muslim sisters walking down the street. You'll see the Asian Pacific Islander families walking down the street. You see the African American brothers walking down the street, and that just kind of gives you a sense like, yeah, this is a diverse place. And in diversity, you're going to have innovation. You're going to have folks who are striving and against the odds, because that is the other element that I'll say about Southeast Seattle, Rainier Beach. Probably one of the more underinvested in areas in the city, but deserves better. Excited about the rebuilding of the high school. It's been around since 1961, and folks have been advocating for years to get that rebuild, and we're successful at it. The other thing I'll say about Southeast Seattle is, we really try to address the felt needs of people in the neighborhood. And then as a result of that, we wind up impacting the whole city and the region through those felt needs. And an example of that is, we had the Rainier Beach Community Center was getting demolished and rebuilt. And we found out that it didn't have any local folks on the construction site. And we started advocating. We said, no, this can't be. So ultimately what wound up happening was the development of a priority hire program. And so now any City of Seattle capital construction project must have 25% of the workforce coming from these underinvested in neighborhoods. And so that means into the construction trade, getting living wage jobs. And then guess what happened from that? This was city. It got picked up by the county. It got picked up by the Port of Seattle. It got picked up by Seattle Public Schools. It got picked up by Sound Transit. And so now what was a felt need in the neighborhood to get folks into the construction industry now has this regional kind of impact. And I can tell you all kind of stories about advocacy that has happened in that way. But I'll stop and see what else you got to ask.
My guest again is Mr. Gregory Davis, Managing Strategist for the Rainier Beach Action Coalition. And you are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio .world. It's me, Tony B., our special Impacts of the Coronavirus on South Seattle and Surrounding Communities broadcast. RBAC, Rainier Beach Action Coalition. Let's talk about RBAC. Why does it exist? What do you do? Just give us everything about RBAC, the Rainier Beach Action Coalition, that you need to know, but we're afraid to ask.
Yeah, well, first of all, we pronounce it's kind of affectionately known as RBAC. And then we say RBAC has your back. Okay. And, it really started when we were trying to organize organizations in the neighborhood. When, I was at Urban Impact 2000, kind of connected with New Covenant Christian Church out there, Atlantic Street Center out there, the community center out there. We wanted to organize organizations. And one of the ways that we wanted to start doing that was to find out if the students felt connected to their school and if the residents felt connected to their community, and they didn't. And so we strategized and we said, how do we kind of do this? We said, let's do a back to school bash. Let's give away free backpacks. Let's invite organizations to provide their resources. And then let's do town halls. Let's give the residents a chance to kind of come in and talk about what's on their mind in regards to what's going on into the neighborhood. And so that started the Rainier Beach Community Empowerment Coalition. And so this will be our 19th year doing the Back to School Bash. And since 2003, we've probably done at least 50, 60 town halls. In fact, you were one of our personalities at the Back to School Bash. We actually did do some DJ in there. And so that's the humble beginnings. And then, you know, over time, when you kind of do those kind of events, folks kind of begin to look to you to support their bodies of work. So then during we had an opportunity to update the neighborhood plan. And we were able to organize 1,500 people, and an organization named Rainier Beach Moving Forward continued to do that. And we merged with them and we became Rainier Beach Action Coalition. So right now what we do is have a focus on community safety. We have a focus on food justice, and we've got a focus on economic development, trying to build some capacity to deal with the transportation issues in the neighborhood, the education issues in the neighborhood. That's why we love Aaron Akuno, because they are actually our go-to education advocate group. When we have issues with education, we go to the Southeast Seattle Education Coalition, kind of be our guide and our advisors on all issues education. So another thing I'll say about the organization is we've got about 35 employees, and 60% of them are young adults between the age of 18 and 24, because we believe in hiring the young people in the neighborhood to implement the strategies in the neighborhood plan. And plus, we got to really be about succession planning, right? Among any of those 20 or so young folks is the person that's going to be the next managing strategist at Rainier Beach Action Coalition.
All right, and I'm going to give folks a heads up here. I'll come to your community event, but don't actually ask me to DJ. I'll bring a DJ. I'll talk, but...
And we'll pay too. We ain't gonna ask you to, you know, just kind of show up.
Now I have some pretty good old school music to play, but I'll bring a DJ. You don't want me on turntables.
Okay. Got it.
My guest again is Gregory Davis, our back, Rainier Beach Action Coalition, and you shared a little bit of information. I'm gonna dig in your Kool-Aid a little bit more because y'all are growing. You have a home now, and let's talk about that a little bit and how that happened.
Yeah, you know, we were really inspired by a number of people in the neighborhood: Yolanda Gill Masendere, Harry Hoffman, rest in power. All of them have passed away, and they started the Rainier Beach Urban Farm. And it was through that inspiration that we said we need to really stand on their shoulders and focus in on some food justice work. And so one of the things that had us do, we had to find a place to operate from. So we started looking for properties, and we're fortunate enough to find one that's right across the street from the Rainier Beach Light Rail Station. You know, partnered with some groups, kind of hold the property. Eventually was successful in getting some support from the city to purchase it. And we now own 24,000 square feet of property that we are right now doing tenant improvements on, so that we can kind of test this idea of a food innovation center. And that's really where, you know, the connection with the Seattle Foundation and the Fund for Inclusive Recovery comes from. We said that we really needed to support our local food insecurity situation. We needed to focus on supporting Black farmers. And so we said that we were going to do a food policy council. So we're looking for the food policy council to operate out of this facility too. And, you know, we're really only interested in kind of like the first couple of floors. We're looking for a developer to kind of go up further. You know, we're not sure if we want to do housing, if we want to do community-based organizations, but through the support of a lot of folks, Forterra kind of helped do some land banking for us, and then when the city kicked in the resource, we were able to buy it from them, and now we're owners of it free and clear, and are just looking to do some tenant improvements on it so we can have our offices there, a little studio, cold dry storage to support Black farmers in the neighborhood, a little kitchen in there so that, you know, maybe on a Monday we can have our Latino community come in there and do some stuff. On a Tuesday, our East African community. on a Wednesday, our Vietnamese community. And, of course, African Americans, we got to have Friday, right? We got to have that so we can do our thing. And then Saturday, imagine all of us coming together to share our food, to share our culture, to develop community together. So that's what we're looking to do on our home base there.
And that is a big deal. Talk a little bit about why it's in particular in this community, Rainier Beach, why it's important to have a physical manifestation of all of the things that you espouse.
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. And in a way, it starts like with our young people. They got to see something. And I guess I could say they're kind of the seeing is believing kind of generation. And so when we talk about having a facility to keep them inspired, to keep them kind of focused on supporting community, we got to have something that they can see. But also, we're experiencing this gentrification, and our institutions are moving out. So we need a cultural anchor in the neighborhood also, so that folks can just have something to hold on to. Naturally, we need a place for people to come together, either to continue to do advocacy work or just to kind of develop relationships. And that's something that we've been able to do a great deal of advocacy for in the neighborhood. We have about 6 new housing development projects coming on. And we get in front of those developers and we say, hey, this is fine. We need you to do something that meets the need of the neighborhood. But now we need you to make sure that you're doing something with community benefit on the ground floor. So to kind of continue, that idea of that anchoring, one of them is going to have fathers and sons together in it. One of them is going to have the Black Northwest Pioneers in it. We got a relationship happening with Mount Baker and Bio 7 to try to get the Northwest Tap connection and the Union Cultural Center on the ground floor to kind of continue that hold on community anchors so that we can stay rooted and not experience the gentrification that it's kind of happening far too much.
My guest again, Gregory Davis, managing strategist for the Rainier Beach Action Coalition, RBAC, are back. It seems like we just got started, and I'm so excited to be able to share you and what RBAC does in our community. It seems like we're just tipping the iceberg of all of these things. But I want to give you an opportunity here to say something to our audience without me firing a question at you. So I'm going to give you the floor here. Whatever information that you would like to share with, of course, our Rainier Beach audience, our South Seattle audience, and everybody listening from everywhere else as well.
Yeah, we all love Tony B, don't we? Let me hear from you. Okay, all right, we'll start with that. But the other is, really want to kind of hold to kind of what I think the intention here is to talk about the success that we had with the proposal for the Food Fund for Inclusive Recovery. We plan on organizing a food policy council. We experienced during the pandemic really food insecurity issues. And one of the things is we live in a kind of a food swamp. When you look at Rainier Beach, really the only grocer you got is Safeway, but then you got all of these other fast food restaurants. So we really need all of us to get a hold of this food security issue. And it's so important that because it kind of goes across all other issues. And so we are looking to support a local food economy. And we really need to be conscientious about that because, we've seen these issues with the national supply chain and things stop coming in. So imagine if that happened to our food. And in fact, it has happened to our food. So we really want to get the listeners south of Seattle to kind of understand the importance that we've got to create a local base for our own food. We've got to support Black, Indigenous, people of color, farmers, because food is the foundation. That's going to support our health. That's going to support our relationship. That's going to support the opportunity for jobs. One of the things that we learned was that 2% of all food that we spend money on only comes from King County. All of it comes from out of King County. So imagine if we just increase that by 10%, that's 10,000 jobs. And so that's something that we really want folks to kind of understand. Check out our website, rbcoalition.org. Got opportunities there for volunteering, opportunities there to donate. Just finished Give Big. It's not too late. And just kind of really understand the serious nature of needing to control our own foodstuffs, culturally farming practices, cultural-based foods, because it just impacts so many things in our society and in our families. One of the things I tell people real quick is, hey, when our young people are acting up in school and, we want to kind of be punitive, how about give them something to eat? How about that? And you can bet that the behavior is going to change.
Greg, how much did you guys get? Erin told us they got $200,000 a year for 3 years, which she describes as not a lot of money. It is a lot of money. It ain't, it ain't Oprah money, but it's a lot of money, and I'm certain that it will be helpful and useful to you. Again, in inclusive recovery. What did you guys get?
Yeah, we got the same. I think they kind of did it the same. Everybody got $200,000, for 3 years. And so our plan is to hire a coordinator. But the other important part about this Food Policy Council model is that we plan to give half of it to the people that we're wanting to come to the table. The farmers, usually if you invited them to a meeting, they're thinking about their crops back on the farm. And we want to be able to support them with a grant, say like $10,000, $15,000, so they can hire somebody to be back on the farm and they don't have to worry about it. Or that's the same way with you or me. When we go to a meeting, we're thinking about what's happening at the shop, and we want to be able to stipend folks to come to the table in a more significant way than just, that $1,500 for a year. We're talking about 10 grand. So half of our grant is going to go to the people that we want to be at the table, so that we've got the right people, the people who are focused to be able to look at these food policies that the city and the King County does, make sure that Black folks, people of color, voices are in them. And that's really what we're going to do with that money.
Greg, I'm actually not only out of time, I'm overtime, but it was so great to have this opportunity to catch up. We'll have to do more of this and share what you've got going on in the community and all that good stuff. Appreciate what you do. Keep up the great work. Our back has my back, your back, and our back.
Yeah. Appreciate you. Keep up the good work. Okay.
All right. Thanks. That's it. Like I said, I'm not only out of time, I'm a little overtime. That's going to do it for the kid. It's me, Tony B. You've been listening to Rainier Avenue Radio .World's impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. Thanks again to my guest, Adelheid Abergast, and then also teacher Gay Davis from the Foster Grandparent Program, Aaron Akuno from CSAC, and of course Greg Davis from Rainier Beach Action Coalition. That's it. That's all the time that I have. That is going to do it for the kid. It's me, Tony B., your host of South Impacts of the Coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities, saying, remember, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you are probably right. I'm out.